and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
Can the Jags score a first down for downtown? I'm Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour on First Coast Connect, a conversation with Jaguars president Mark Lamping about the team's plans for developing the area around TIAA Bank Field, including a new Four Seasons hotel. We'll take a closer look then later.
Bringing voters that traditionally don't show up on a regular basis is key for us being able to win, and we saw that obviously by President Biden winning in the county.
A conversation about voting and Duval's changing demographics with local Democratic Party Chair Daniel Henry. Plus, a look at what's good on our news menu this Wednesday. All of that and more just ahead. After the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Biden has departed for his first foreign trip since taking office. He's en route to the United Kingdom, where he's scheduled to attend the G7 meeting. Biden will later go to Brussels for a NATO summit. The president has ended negotiations with a top Republican over infrastructure packages. NPR's Mara Liasson reports Biden is now apparently reaching out to a bipartisan group of senators that are working on a different infrastructure deal.
President Biden's talks with West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito about a bipartisan infrastructure bill appear to be over. Senator Capito said she spoke with the president and he told her he was ending the negotiations. But the White House says the president is still pursuing a bipartisan deal. He's talking to Republicans who are part of a bipartisan group who are trying to put together an infrastructure package. That group includes Republicans Mitt Romney and Rob Portman and Democrats Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Biden is also keeping in touch with Democratic leaders in Congress who are working on a parallel track, preparing infrastructure legislation that might be able to get through the Senate with just 50 Democratic votes. The White House continues to insist that there are many paths to an infrastructure deal, but at least so far they don't have the votes to succeed on any of them. Mara Liasson, NPR News.
Authorities in several countries say the FBI coordinated a global sting operation that led to the arrest of some 800 people. NPR's Ryan Lucas reports the investigation revolved around an encrypted messaging platform that was being used by transnational criminal groups.
The encrypted communication system was called ANOM, and authorities say that criminals used it to plan multi-ton drug shipments, illicit payments, and other crimes. What the criminals didn't know, however, was that the encrypted system was secretly run by the FBI, and all of the messages were being copied and monitored by law enforcement. Acting U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of California, Randy Grossman.
The criminals using these devices believed they were secretly planning crimes far beneath the radar of law enforcement. But in reality, the criminals were not underneath the radar. They were on it.
Officials say this sprawling international investigation was one of the largest ever to go after encrypted criminal activities. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
Thousands of Canadians turned out in Ontario last night. They mourned the killings of a Muslim family on Tuesday. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also attended. Dan Karpenchuk reports that police in Ontario say 4 people were killed in a targeted attack.
Only the 9-year-old son survived the attack after the driver of a pickup truck mounted the curb and struck a family of 5 out for a stroll. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called it a terrorist attack. At the vigil, he said Islamophobia is real, racism is real, and Canadians should not have to face it in their communities or in their country. He and other political leaders promised change. A 20-year-old London, Ontario man faces 4 charges of first-degree murder.
Dan Karpenchuk reporting. This is NPR.
And the time is now 4 minutes after 9. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Pfizer is expanding the testing of its COVID-19 vaccine in children younger than 12 after a small initial study to determine what dosages to use. Enrollment of 5 to 11-year-olds began this week. Enrollment of children as young as 6 months is going to start in a few weeks. The Pfizer vaccine is already authorized for emergency use in anyone 12 and older in the U.S. and the European Union. We're 1 week into this year's Atlantic hurricane season, and there have been no tropical related concerns to the U.S. so far. Even though the National Hurricane Center has identified an area in the Caribbean for possible development, meteorologist Jeff Huffman says it's not an imminent threat.
As of right now, this is likely just to become an area of disturbed weather that could produce heavy rain across portions of Central America. Long-range data does suggest that some of that moisture may eventually move into the Gulf, but that wouldn't happen until next week.
And Jeff went on to say that the Gulf and Western Caribbean are climatologically favored areas for tropical development in June, but as of right now, chances with this disturbance are low. 80 degrees here in northeast Florida in Jacksonville, partly cloudy, a 30% chance of isolated thunderstorms, mainly after 4 p.m., mostly sunny, low 90s today with the south wind, dropping to the low 70s overnight, and a 20% chance of thunderstorms after 2 Thursday, mostly sunny near 94 degrees.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include iDrive with Remote PC, providing remote access to PCs, Macs, and servers from anywhere, assisting those working from home, and also enabling remote assistance for customers at remotepc.com.
The Jaguars look to score a first down for downtown. Good morning. We're live from Studio 5. I'm Melissa Ross, and this is First Coast Connect. Thanks for listening. Just ahead, a conversation with Jaguars president Mark Lamping on the franchise's plans to develop downtown. Give us a call now, 549-2937. Then later, a look at what's good on our news menu this Wednesday. First, though, the Jaguars are calling it First Downtown Jacksonville. Jaguars owner Shad Khan has a new plan out for downtown development. He wants to build a Four Seasons hotel and residences on the riverfront, a new football performance center with some fan-friendly features and some other attractions, too. The total cost for developing all of this would be about $440 million. Khan is seeking city support in the amount of just over $150 million. This is a scaled down ask, though, for the taxpayers in the wake of the failed Lot J push. There's a lot to ask about this, and we're pleased to welcome Jaguars president Mark Lamping back to the show. He's on the line to fill us in. Hi, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great. Great to have you. What are your questions, everyone, for Jaguars president Mark Lamping for the plan the team is calling First Downtown Jacksonville? You can even follow that account on Twitter. Give us a call. It's 549-2937. Emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tweets to @MelissaInJax, and our Facebook page is open. So you've unveiled an ambitious new plan, Mark. Tell us a little bit more about the different pieces of First Downtown Jacksonville and how this might work.
Well, if you take a step back and you think about all of the property that extends from the Berkman Building to the west all the way through Metropolitan Park, most of that is either park property in the case of Met Park and what used to be called the Kids Campus. And the rest of it is pretty much undeveloped. And, our focus is not so much going east to west along the riverfront, but rather going north and south from the property just across the street from the stadium, through the parking lots on the west side of the stadium up all the way to the Arlington Expressway. And the intersection of those areas is traditionally what's been called the Kids Campus, and that's where we announced plans last week of a Four Seasons hotel, Four Seasons residences, a renovated and updated city-owned marina, a 6th-floor office building, a marina support building that would make that marina full service through the addition of a dockmaster's office, a ship store, showers and restrooms for the public, as well as a food and beverage venue. And then we also talked about the Metropolitan Park, and we've always believed Met Park is such a jewel for downtown, and we would love to see it restored to its previous glory, and certainly want Met Park to continue to be well maintained and up to date and safe, and have committed through the city's private park adoption program that the Jaguars would commit $200,000 a year each year for 20 years to help make sure that Met Park remains well maintained. In addition to that, as we went through a lot of debate over the course of the past 6 months or so, there was a lot of questions about what's the future of the stadium. And, as we've gone through that Stadium of the Future exercise in partnership with the city, with the Haskell companies, and with ASM Global, who is the city's agent for managing facilities, we've put in place the start of a plan that can lead to a renovation that we believe can extend the useful life of TIAA Bank Field for many years into the future, and that starts with the construction of the Jaguar Sports Performance Center. It's a necessary first part in order to be able to get to renovations of the stadium, and at the same time, I think all of us want to keep all the Jaguar games in Jacksonville during the renovation period.
There's a lot to this. Let's begin with the Four Seasons. Anyone who's been to a Four Seasons knows they're fantastic 5-star properties. But what's your response to skeptics who don't think that the downtown area could support a high-end hotel like that?
Well, I mean, we're the ones that have commissioned the market study, and the market study is really interesting, Melissa. What it speaks to is that yes, not everyone in Jacksonville is looking to stay in a luxury hotel. One of the good things about that is the rooms themselves may be filled with people coming from outside Jacksonville, which is always a good thing for your economy. But if you look at the hotel market, there is a segment of the hotel market that is what they call non-price sensitive. And that means that those are travelers who are coming into Jacksonville, business travelers during the week, leisure travelers on the weekend, that are simply looking for the best possible place to stay in the location that they desire. And what the Four Seasons is designed to do is to market directly at that group, which quite honestly currently doesn't have an option in downtown Jacksonville. The market studies that have been done, that have been submitted to the DIA for their review, suggest that there is a market for that. It's not a market for everyone, but it is a portion of a market that, quite honestly, is currently unserved in Jacksonville. The idea of having a luxury hotel downtown, that's not competing with any existing hotels. It's adding something new to the marketplace. Yeah, we certainly believe that it will be successful, and Shad believes it's going to be successful as well, or he wouldn't be investing well north of $200 million to make it a reality.
Right. The bulk of this is his own money. There will be some taxpayer support. Let me ask you about resiliency planning for these new projects, Mark. This is all riverfront or riverfront adjacent property. We have seen how the river can flood, and we can expect more of that in the coming years. How to mitigate against that?
Well, our resiliency studies suggest that you can engineer around that. What you do is, you are really careful as it relates to what you do with the bulkheads. You're thoughtful in terms of how you create elevation change going from the riverfront back towards where the buildings are constructed. You build at slightly higher elevations. You put parking garages on underground or on the first floor. You don't put your mechanical systems underground where they can get flooded. Those parking garages actually serve a very nice purpose in the event that there is flooding, to actually capture the water. So, again, Shad is investing well north of $200 million on this project, and he certainly wouldn't be going forward with that if we didn't believe, and our engineers and architects didn't agree that this can be done in a way that not only meets the current seawater levels, but also what we project to happen in the future.
Let me ask you as well about how you plan to remediate that vacant shipyards parcel. A lot of environmental work needs to be done there before anything can be built. It's sat vacant for many years. It will be expensive. Can you take us through that process?
Well, unlike Lot J, where there were more significant environmental issues, our phase ones are complete on the property where the Four Seasons is going to be going. You just asked a question about resiliency. So what you do is you tend to build up a little bit. You change the elevations in a very natural way, and we believe that the environmental remediation on the shipyard's property is very minor, very, very minor, and it's not of the scale that I think people think it's going to be, and we're very pleased by that.
All right, lots of calls for Jaguars President Mark Lamping, 549-2937. Give us a call as we talk about their plan for developing around the stadium and on the riverfront. They're calling it First Downtown Jacksonville. Susan in Mandarin. Hi, Susan. How are you?
Oh, thanks for taking my call, and thank you very much for having this wonderful guest on the show. I was wondering why the taxpayer has to contribute to this, because we've just been asked to increase our taxes by increasing gas taxes. So I just wonder, giving money to billionaire developers just doesn't seem a wise use of poor people, middle-class people's money. I applaud what they're trying to do. I just don't understand why the taxpayers have to contribute to it. I don't mind my money going to the Emerald Trail, which is really cool, which is open to everybody, but for-profit industries should be able to, that's the free market, right? The free market should support for-profit industries, and they should be able to support their own endeavors. I'm happy with my tax money going to replace failing septic tanks, and the cool parks in the downtown area is really cool. But please explain to me why you want our taxpayer money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Of course, Mark Lamping, there was a bit of a taxpayer revolt over the prior plan for Lot J. That was narrowly defeated in the city council after they heard from constituents like Susan. So what's your response to the taxpayers who are making this argument about incentives?
Well, that's a policy question that every community needs to deal with. This isn't the first time that there have been private-public partnerships that have been developed. Look all throughout Jacksonville. New FIS headquarters. What the city did to attract Dun & Bradstreet to this community. What's happening on the south bank of the river? That's a policy question, for elected officials to deal with. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, the question is the return to the taxpayer going to be greater than what the taxpayer's investment is? And generally, that's when decisions are made to support these types of projects, and that's certainly going to be the case with this project. The other thing I would like to add, particularly as it relates to the Four Seasons, the renovation of the city-owned marina, the office building that we're building. There's about $94 million in incentives attached to that, but about half of that incentive is in the form of a REV grant. What a REV grant is basically a partial rebate back to the developer of the property taxes that they will be paying. So, in essence, half of this city investment, the city partnership in this, is basically coming with its own funding source, which is property taxes, which currently are not being generated from that parcel. And those dollars actually come into the project over a 20-year period. They do not begin until after the project is open. The same thing with the majority of the other incentives. Almost all of the public incentives kick in on this project once the project is complete.
Can you talk a little bit more, too, about the community piece that you're envisioning, support for the historic East Side, which is an underdeveloped neighborhood around the stadium? You're also holding some community huddles about this. Is that right?
Absolutely, Melissa. The Jaguars have always been very much involved in the community. It's a responsibility that Shad believes that we have to the community. It's part of the Jaguars' DNA, going all the way back to the beginning, with the Weavers when they brought the Jaguars here to Jacksonville, and it continues to this day. We tend not to talk a lot about what we do, and quite honestly, I've been talking to community leaders and elected officials and talking about what we're doing in the community. Many of them suggest we'd be serving ourselves a lot. We'd be doing ourselves a favor if we talked about this stuff a little more frequently. And as it relates to downtown, in addition to what the Jaguars have done for generations here in Jacksonville, supporting the Lift Jacks in the Out East neighborhood. Shad just announced $1 million donation. He's committed $5 million to as a lead pledge to hopefully bring a world-class Museum of Science and History to the North Bank. We were proud to partner with other companies to to help make Lift Every Voice and Sing Park a possibility. I mentioned earlier the $4 million commitment we've made to Met Park, and we're also committed to engaging with the public. In addition to the First Downtown JAX platform that we've created that has all of the information that directs people to all the resources as it relates to downtown development. We're going to be conducting 15 what we're calling community huddles over the course of the next 4 weeks throughout the city, actually throughout the region, to share our plans directly with the public and solicit their feedback and hopefully create a very good dialogue. It is something that was pointed out to us as we've gone through the debates that it's probably important that we speak a little more directly to the community as it relates to these initiatives, and we're glad to apply that learning to this project.
You mentioned preserving Metropolitan Park. Will you interact at all with the group Riverfront Parks Now, who have been calling for as much green space and public access park space on the riverfront as possible?
Well, we had a conversation, and I think that we shouldn't be the position that determines what the park strategy is in Jacksonville. That belongs to the community. That belongs to the city. It shouldn't be the Jaguars who are determining that. So, we're very supportive of parks. I think, what we've done with Met Park and what we said all along in terms of the importance of parks on the riverfront, we're a big believer in that. We think that the right balance of development with green space is exactly what downtown needs. And, because of that, we've been very supportive of the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund and the park study that they're currently undertaking in conjunction with the city of Jacksonville. So, development and parks can operate side by side and complement each other, and that happens all over the country, and I'm sure it'll happen here in Jacksonville.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Jaguars President Mark Lamping about the team's plans for developing the sports complex and the riverfront. They're calling it First Downtown Jacksonville, 549-2937. Eric is in Arlington. Hi, Eric. How are you? Go ahead.
Good morning. There have been several studies done that have pretty much proved that, in fact, they have proved that NFL franchises add absolutely no economic impact to the cities in which they exist. Do you support this reality, or are you part of the anti-reality crowd that is so prevalent today in politics and elsewhere?
Mark Lamping.
I guess all I can say to that is, speaking for the 400 full-time employees of the Jacksonville Jaguars, we're glad the football team's here. We have over 3,000 people that work Jaguar games. When we're at home, we know other events are here, and I think that's for others to decide. As I said earlier, I think most people would agree that having the Jaguars here in Jacksonville has been very positive for this community over the 25 plus years, and will hopefully continue for generations to come.
Lots of calls. Mark on the west side. Hello, Mark.
Good morning. A couple of quick points. There has actually been a luxury hotel on the St. Johns River just 100 yards where you're proposing yours, and that was the Adams Mark Hotel. And that Adams Mark Hotel was built as a luxury resort, and the private, public, we give them tax dollars to build that, and they folded up stakes and sold after 4 years. But also, I kind of agree with the first caller. She said, why are we having to give any taxpayer money? And you mentioned that there's lots of projects where there's public and private input, and that's true. But we've never had a project where the head guy is a multi-billionaire who could easily write a check for this himself. And I really don't understand why he doesn't save himself the time and trouble to, come in front of City Hall and council meetings and doing all these things about, why did he just write a check? My main question was, you said renovation for the stadium. They said the exact same thing when the Jaguars first came here about the Gator Bowl, and they ended up tearing it completely down, and it cost 5 times more than they thought and all that stuff. What is your end? I think you guys are going for a totally new stadium, which will cost, upwards of $1 billion, and of course you'll come to the city of Jacksonville for that. So, why should we believe you when you say $100 million renovation? Thank you.
Okay, Mark. Mark Lamping, I appreciate you being willing to take the slings and arrows from some of the skeptical taxpayers out there. What about that question?
Well, I mean, there's sort of fundamental questions about what type of city we want to be, and do we want an NFL team to be here? Do we want to have a community that grows? Do we want to have a community that provides for everyone throughout the community? I don't think that you build great cities on the backs of failing businesses. I don't think that's the case. I think you want to attract a private capital into the city. I think the fact that Shad Khan has a great belief in Jacksonville and is willing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars. He has already in the past and continue to do so in the future. I think is a good thing for the city, but that's probably for others to decide. Projects have to be sustainable.
Can you explain though? Can you answer the perception that some folks out there have that he could just write a check and pay for the whole thing himself? Can you talk a little bit more about why Mr. Khan is asking for city skin in the game and why that's common in other NFL cities for these kinds of projects?
Well, I don't think it's only common as it relates to NFL projects. I think it's common across development in cities all across the United States. Again, this isn't the first time that the city of Jacksonville is considering partnering with a private company. Many of the private companies that they partner with are very profitable companies, but that incentive is necessary so that the project itself is sustainable. I don't think you want to build a community under the expectation that through the benevolence of some rich person, they're going to continue to underwrite businesses which do not in and of themselves have strong financial structure. And that's what these things are all about. The DIA review process is very, very rigid, and the DIA basically comes to the conclusion: is this project possible? Is it sustainable without public assistance? And if the conclusion of that is yes, it is, then generally there's a recommendation not to support it. But if the project itself requires a public partnership, and what the public receives through that partnership is a positive return, then many times DIA will recommend that the project go forward, regardless of the financial capacity and standing of the company that is developing the project.
You mentioned that Shad Khan is committed to Jacksonville and that he's spent a lot of money already. What's your response to fans out there who are worried the team might not be here for the long haul? The lease is good through this decade. Is this project further evidence of the owner's commitment to a long-term future for the Jaguars in Jacksonville?
I think reasonable people would look at Shad Khan investing, north of $220 million in development and then investing another $60 million in a city-owned stadium. That is evidence that he is committed to staying in Jacksonville. If he wasn't focused and committed to staying in Jacksonville, why would he be investing hundreds of millions of dollars in downtown Jacksonville?
Let's take one more call for Jaguars President Mark Lamping. Adrian. Hi, Adrian. Go ahead.
Hi. I just want to thank the Vice President on the great job he's doing downtown with everything that's going on that they're trying to accomplish. And I just want to ask everybody that are doubting the Jaguars and the development and what it would bring to Jacksonville, why are they asking the city why they won't sell the land that they are sitting on for so long, underdeveloped, it's ran down. So why aren't they asking the city that sell the land to Mr. Khan? He can develop it, bring in tax base, but they're not doing that. So that's really not a question to him. It's just a question to the city.
All right, Adrian. Yeah, I do think most people do want to see something done with that vacant property for sure. And so, Mark, with all of that said, getting away from the business piece for a minute, how excited are you about the upcoming season with Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow, and Trevor Lawrence now on side?
Well, excited about the season. I know it's reflected in terms of the interest in the Jaguars, and the greater the interest there is in the Jaguars, the more people that come to Jacksonville to see Jaguar games, the greater the economic impact is. And we're very excited about this season, but quite honestly, Melissa, we're also very excited about the future of downtown Jacksonville. The north bank of the St. Johns River from from the Berkman building out through Met Park has been underdeveloped, underutilized for decades now, and I think the time has come. I think there's momentum. I think there's opportunity, and there's willing private investment to help make things happen. And I'm very confident that at the end of the day, we'll all be very proud of what we get done together.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. He's the Jaguars president, Mark Lamping. Get in touch with the Jaguars to be part of their community huddles on this project. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. And again, if people have questions, they should go to firstdowntownjax.com. All the information is there, and stay tuned for our announcement of our community meetings.
We'll follow it too. And much more later in the hour, including a look at what's good on our news menu this Wednesday. But up next.
Bringing voters that traditionally don't show up on a regular basis is key for us being able to win. And we saw that obviously by President Biden winning in the county.
The head of the Duval Dems on where his party goes from here as the city's demographics undergo change. We'll be right back.
Certificates for woodworking tools, supplies, and classes for new and experienced woodworkers. Locally owned since 2003, Woodcraft is located in St. John's Plaza at Beach Boulevard and St. John's Bluff. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Well, the chair of the Duval County Democratic Party says he's looking forward after some troubles within the ranks. Daniel Henry survived a recent attempt to remove him from office, and he says he's now focused on winning the midterms for North Florida and also registering new voters in a region whose demographics are changing. I spoke with Henry. Take a listen. Daniel Henry, good to talk to you. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be here too, Melissa. Thank you.
So after some unrest among local Democrats, you're going to continue in your role as chair of the Duval County Democratic Party. What's your response to those who tried to oust you by saying that you improperly talked to local Republicans as they were going about the business of redistricting?
Well, first, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to respond. I've said from the very beginning that these accusations were false. I told my membership, particularly about the conversation that I had with Councilman Diamond.
Rory Diamond. Okay, yeah.
That's correct. That the offer that he had extended to me was rejected, and that I showed no interest in participating.
And can you explain again, what was put to you? What was offered to you?
Sure. So it was a casual conversation that I had with Councilman Diamond. During that conversation, he brought up redistricting, and he had expressed an interest for Democrats and Republicans to work together on the redistricting efforts that were going to be occurring in City Council, currently, particularly after the census data was released. I told him that I wasn't interested in working in any kind of deal or any kind of partnership with him, and we moved on from the topic. It's obviously a little bit disconcerting to have that manipulated into something that it completely wasn't, but I'm glad that my membership was able to see that, and we've been able to move forward from this topic.
Is it true you were offered the chance at your own seat in public office in exchange for perhaps helping the Republicans draw lines that were favorable to them?
No, it isn't. And I've said that from the very beginning that it wasn't. He talked about different council seats and the population shifts that everyone knows has been occurring since the census was last done in 2010. But by no means was there any kind of offer or quid pro quo about an exchange of seats or the configuration of them.
So now that this is behind you and you'll continue in your leadership role, what are your priorities for the Duval County Democratic Party? As we've noted, this county did go for Joe Biden in 2020. The demographics here are changing rapidly. The area is trending more blue. That said, the local Democratic Party has come in for a lot of criticism, not only from Republicans, but also from Democrats who say that the party isn't capitalizing on these changes to better reflect the demographics of the community. What say you?
Well, I just want to kind of put this in perspective. So I became chair of the party in January of 2019, and before that I served as vice chair during the 2018 election. And I can tell you right now that we have done a remarkable job on not only galvanizing members within our party to effectuate some of these changes and to bring it to bear in the election results. We saw that in the 2018 election when we were able to bring the win for Andrew Gillum and for Bill Nelson and for Nikki Fried. It's the first time that had occurred for a governor's race in over 36 years. And that came with putting boots on the ground, voter registration, increasing the number of Democrats that were signed up for vote by mail. We took those same lessons of experience and amplified them during the 2020 election in the middle of a global pandemic. We were able to partner with several different progressive organizations across the city that were uniquely capable of helping us doing door knocking, phone banking, signing up more Democrats for vote by mail. And that had a very big impact in us being able to win in the 2020 election. And I'll just use one data point as a good example of that. In January of 2020, before the global pandemic, we had a little under 20,000 Democrats that were signed up for vote by mail. Even before then, we recognized how much of an impact it was going to have in the 2020 election, and COVID later proved that to be the case. By the end of November, right before the polls were open, we had over 92,000 Democrats that were signed up for this. Bringing voters that traditionally don't show up on a regular basis is key for us being able to win in local elections. We recognize that, and we try to use that as a way for us to be able to win. And we saw that obviously by President Biden winning in the county. So we're taking those lessons. We are starting a process for recruiting candidates both for 2022 and 2023, so that way we can translate those wins into local wins as well.
Let's talk about 2023. Mayor Lenny Curry is termed out. Of course, he's a Republican. There are a number of Republicans running to replace him. As yet, no Democrat. What about that?
It's pretty early, and when we're talking about
Is it
mayor,
really? With these candidates that have already raised millions of dollars on the Republican side?
I think history will show you both in past mayoral races, both when there is an incumbent or when there isn't an incumbent, that we are in a pretty early point when it comes to candidates launching their campaigns and raising money. Every single year, obviously, these races get a lot sooner. I mean, not sooner, but a lot more time eclipsed them before they actually get to the ballot. I'm committed, and the party is committed to having a candidate in the mayoral race, and that is something that we know will occur for 2023.
And when might you be expected to announce who that candidate is?
I'm not gonna give you a timeline as to when a certain candidate that recognizes not only the diversity of our community, but the potential that we have to effectuate so much change for the next 4 years. We know that Jacksonville has always been the city that has been left behind. Many of our sister and brother cities across the state have been able to harness the development and economic interest to actually bring betterment to their citizens. Jacksonville is on that cusp with a lot of the programs that are being directly invested into our communities, and I know that a Democratic candidate will be able to not only share that vision, but show voters that we are the right ones to be able to lead the city in a future of tomorrow.
Now, you mentioned that part of your strategy is to turn out voters that don't turn out all of the time, increase turnout. The state has recently made changes to voting that will make it harder for both Republicans and Democrats to vote when it comes to voting by mail, early voting. So, as the local party chair, what is your strategy to meet what in effect are higher barriers to voting?
Of course, and this isn't new. We continually see every 2 years or every year, frankly, from legislative session, different ways that, to be frank, Republicans and the governor have tried to make and disenfranchise the vote. But that's not going to change our plans to continue to talk to voters, to continue to register them and harness the diversity that we are seeing come into our county. And it's going to continue with the door knocking and the vote by mail registration efforts and the outreach that now we'll be able to do in a much better form now that we don't have to kind of worry about COVID-19 and the social distancing that we've had to deal with over the course of the last year. That's the first approach. You also see different civil rights and voting organizations bringing forth litigation to challenge many of these policies in court, and we're looking forward to see what result they may have. But ultimately, it's all about voter outreach. We try to do that throughout the year, and we're going to continue to do that regardless of whether or not these new oppressive types of bills that you're seeing all across the country get enacted in our state in particular and disenfranchise voters from voting.
Daniel Henry, thanks for your time. Well, Hurricane Susan is looming, and more than 50,000 homeowners have been or will soon be notified that their insurance policy will be dropped. As a result, the state's insurer of last resort, Citizens Insurance, is growing by thousands of new policies every week. This does raise long-term questions about Citizens' ability to sustain payouts from a massive hurricane. Let's hope we don't get one hitting us. Gina Clausen-Lozier is on the line. She's with Berger Singerman's Insurance in Florida. She's an expert on hurricane insurance. Gina, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being with us. A very timely conversation. We do expect an active storm season this year. With more and more people flooding to or fleeing to Citizens Insurance, that's creating a rickety system for covering homeowners in the state. Can you explain why?
Yeah, so as you know, I think the trend the insurance companies have been kind of reducing their exposure in the 3 South Florida counties, Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade for years. But that trend has kind of moved up north as well, extending to Orange, Seminole, Osceola, Lake counties, and obviously out west in the Tampa area. Back in the beginning of May, there was a few consent orders issued that have allowed 3 major insurance companies to cancel policies pursuant to special statutory guidelines. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of those homeowners, they are not able to get the insurance, as you mentioned, through the private market, so they're going with Citizens. And for those who don't necessarily know, Citizens is not a typical insurance company because it was created by statute. It's a statutorily run governmental entity and is often called the insurance company of last resort.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is the purpose of Citizens is to have kind of that backstop for insurance for policyholders who can't get it anywhere else, but it's not meant to be the sole insurance company for Florida policyholders. And I think you bring up a good point. Because of all these cancellations, a lot of people are going to Citizens to try to get their coverage, and that's worrying for a couple of different reasons. I think for consumers, the first part is Citizens coverages are more limited than you're going to get in what we would call the private insurance market. You know, they have limits on liability. Their premiums, although competitive, sometimes you're just not getting the same coverages and the same options that you're going to get from another type of carrier that is out there in the competitive market. One of the other issues with respect to Citizens is they were created as a governmental entity and therefore are immune from certain lawsuits and causes of action against them. So, for example, if you have a claim against a typical insurance company and they don't act in good faith throughout your claims process, you can bring an extra contractual claim against them to essentially punish them for acting in bad faith. Citizens is immune from that. So as a policyholder advocate, that creates some tension with my clients because Citizens doesn't have the same responsibility that another insurance company may have at the end of the day to be held accountable for certain adjusting actions. Also, with respect to the Citizens, they don't necessarily have to take every claim. Or every policy. I have a client right now who was canceled by their insurance company. He still has a pending Hurricane Irma claim that we have been litigating. We're set for trial in about a month here, and Citizens will not take him because of his open claim. So while people think that Citizens is ultimately going to insure their property, sometimes that's not necessarily the case because they also have underwriting guidelines that they're going to have to follow. And they might not insure a risk that creates a substantial risk to them when the premiums may not be worth it to accept the risk. So for people who have had their policy canceled or they think that the cancellation's on the horizon, you got to just start acting now. I mean, we're already into hurricane season. As you said, there's something out there that may be happening already. Too early. It's way too early for that. But, acting diligently now, do a review of your insurance coverages. You could check the financial status of your insurance company online. The Office of Insurance Regulation, Florida's OIR, has a great website. They have great information as far as the ratings of each of your companies to see if they're going to be financially sound moving forward. But if you think that your policy is going to be canceled or you have an understanding that's coming, talk to your agent immediately because it may not be that you're able to find coverage even with Citizens at this point in time.
That is not comforting, Gina. And unfortunately, this is not going in the right direction. It's only going to continue to get worse. The long-term future for Florida homeowners is, unfortunately, if you listen to actuaries and climate scientists, is that there's just going to be parts of the state that are uninsurable. So getting past this hurricane season, what are your thoughts about the long-term picture?
Well, what I'm seeing in the long-term picture is, Citizens is financially backed. There's surcharges across the market that go into Citizens to make sure that they have the funds and the reserves available to pay claims. There's no indication that there won't be financially solvent to be able to address any hurricanes that result from
for now. What about 20 years from now?
20 years from now. So Florida also has the Florida Insurance Guarantee Association, otherwise known as FIGA. FIGA also comes in as a backstop. So there's one insurance company, and there's been a couple in the last couple months that did go insolvent. FIGA comes in and backs the Florida carriers with additional insurance. So if your company does go into receivership and it goes into the bankruptcy process, if you are with a Florida carrier, you do have some protection through FIGA. What I'm seeing moving forward, to answer your question more specifically, is two things. The first is you're going to see a lot of forced place policies. Forced place policies means that your mortgage company, your bank forces you to get coverage, and then the bank is the named insured. And then your insurance is only essentially for the bank's benefit. So if you have forced place insurance, it's going to cover the physical property because that's the bank's interest. But it's not going to give you your additional living expense coverage. It's not going to give you your personal property coverage. It's not going to protect you as a homeowner. It's only going to protect the bank's asset. So I'm seeing a lot of the forced place coverages come into play. The second thing that we're seeing is because these Florida companies are moving out of the counties, moving out of Florida, and starting to expand elsewhere, you're seeing non-domestic companies come in, which are in Florida referred to as surplus lines. So the surplus lines market, companies that may be with Lloyd's of London or Chubb or AIG, things that typically would maybe insure larger commercial, some of them are going to have to start coming into the residential market, especially the high-end residential market.
Well,
and I'm seeing that trend
seeing
as well.
that too. We're out of time, but this is a fascinating conversation, and I hope you'll come back later in the season. Check your policies, everyone. It's hurricane
Absolutely.
season. Gina Clausen-Locher. She's a hurricane
Thank you.
insurance expert with Berger Singerman's Insurance. Thanks, Gina, so much.
Thank you.
And to try to cheer you up a little bit after that dire news, we'll have some positive news and notes in our What's Good Wednesdays. That's next.
Congaree and Pen, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpen.com. Announcing Vickers Landing at Oak Bridge, bridging retirees with an all-new Ponte Vedra Beach community, featuring new homes, a resort lifestyle, and a life plan for every stage of aging. Information at vickerslanding.com.
I'm Robin Young. A new writing project for frontline workers pairs them with professionals to help them express the traumas of treating COVID through prose.
My gloved hand resting on a naked forearm in a meager attempt to bridge the chasm of the boundaries of our communication, trying to say it's going to be okay.
Next time, here and now.
Today at 1 on WJCT News 89.9.
On the next Fresh Air, historian Jeff Schessel recalls the early years of the U.S. space program, when American rockets blew up in test flights while Soviet satellites and cosmonauts soared through the heavens. He also details conflicts among America's first astronauts, in part over their personal conduct. His new book is called Mercury Rising. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
The first new treatment for Alzheimer's disease in nearly 20 years has been approved by the FDA. It's not a miracle drug or a cure, but it has been designed to slow the deterioration of brain function, not just to ease symptoms. What might this mean for the millions of Americans impacted by Alzheimer's and dementia? That's next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, lots of good news on tap this week. Let's begin with the Emerald Trail latest in our What's Good Wednesdays. It's exciting to see the city's plans for the Emerald Trail forge ahead. Now, this is planned as a signature outdoor destination for the city. The project is led by Groundwork Jacksonville. Now, the Emerald Trail will encompass approximately 30 miles of trails, greenways, and parks, and it will encircle the city's urban core on both sides of the river. The trail will link up at least 14 historic neighborhoods to downtown, Hogan's Creek, McCoy's Creek, and the St. Johns River. Basically, you'll be able to bike and walk through multiple neighborhoods in a beautiful green belt. Picture it like a walkable, bikeable version of I-295 in the inner ring of the city. A genius idea. Other cities have already done it. Atlanta has a similar concept called the Beltline up there. And it's a concept that could be a game changer for Duval. The First Horizon Foundation recently committed $10,000 to this plan to jumpstart the private fundraising Groundwork Jacksonville needs to finance the project's design. And that pledge builds on the Jacksonville City Council's recent passage of a resolution to raise the city's gas tax by 6 cents a gallon. Now, in addition to funding major transportation and infrastructure improvements, a portion of that gas tax revenue that you pay at the pump will now go toward financing construction of the Emerald Trail project. Groundwork Jacks is still soliciting private donations to supplement the costs of all of this, but momentum is building for the Emerald Trail, and we can't wait to see it come to reality. Well, even COVID-19 couldn't keep the Mayport Coastal Sciences middle school robotics team from sweeping the competition at the 2021 Sea Perch International Underwater Robotics Challenge this year. Yes, there is such a thing. Now, the competition's theme of ocean cleanup was ideal for Jacksonville's only Coastal Sciences magnet school. Teams were tasked with designing and perfecting homemade machines that could retrieve floating and sunken garbage and complete other complex tasks like manipulating underwater beacons and gates. Taking on regional champions from around the world and across the U.S., the Mayport Robotics Club's 2 competition teams won first and second place awards, respectively, in both the Underwater Challenge and the engineering design competitions. They used things like PVC pipe, wine corks, zip ties, and other common materials to make their devices. But they also learned how to design and manufacture 3D printed frames and other stuff. So super cool, kids. Congratulations. Speaking of kids, this is exciting news for your daughters. Girl Scout camp back this summer, after a long break due to the pandemic. I got the lowdown from CEO Mary Ann Jacobs of Girl Scouts of Gateway.
Well, this is an exciting year for Girl Scouts of Gateway Council. We have camp in 2 different locations this year, our Camp Kateri and a camp that we own in Lillian, Alabama, called Camp Kugelman. So what is super exciting for girls is that we are offering just about every type of program that a girl may be interested in. So we've got the classic camp that starts June 13th, so next week. We have Camp Life, and then we have an art camp, Crazy for Critters, Campfire Chef, Out of This World, Think Space, Wet and Wild, Lights, Camera, Action. Maybe somebody wants to follow in your shoes, Melissa, and can learn some of the techniques. Camps available, and they're all listed on our website, which is girlscouts-gateway.org.
girlscouts-gateway.org. Not too late to register your daughter for camp this summer. Check it out. Well, live music is back all across town, and that includes historic downtown St. Augustine. Their largest downtown outdoor venue is going to be hopping this summer. This month, the Colonial Oak Music Park will again host concerts and other entertainment every week. Shows will range from folk to funk, even include some professional improv comedy. Billed as a unique downtown venue for live performance, a beautiful old live oak spreads its branches over the seating area for the concert goers. It keeps you cool and envelops you in a nostalgic Florida atmosphere. June finds the addition of Jacksonville's First Coast comedy team bringing improv night to the Oak stage in ticketed Wednesday night showcases. On weekends, they're going to book a diverse lineup, everything from the blues of J.W. Gilmore to the folk pop stylings of Christian Powers and the full-on funky power of the extremely popular Groove Coalition. Enjoy and check it out. That's the Colonial Oak Music Park. It's June, so happy Pride. Celebrate our community and support local LGBTQ plus kids and adults with a colorful Forever arrangement. All this month, Daughters Flower Shop in 5 Points will donate the proceeds from their Rainbow Forever arrangements and wrapped bouquets to Jasmine. That's a local organization providing important services to LGBT kids in our area. The arrangements and wrap bouquets are available at Daughters in 5 Points, either in-store or online. Check it out. And if you've got something good to add to our weekly menu, just drop us a line. And sign up for our newsletter, What's Good Wednesdays. It goes out later today. That's our show. Thanks for listening, and thanks to all of our guests and callers, along with producer Heather Schatz. She loves those Daughters Flower Shop arrangements, by the way. That's how we found out about them. Our director is Josh Torres. Our editorial director is Jessica Palumbo. Our digital editor is the great Bill Bortsfield. Send us an email. Get in touch. It's firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can catch our podcast up later today, too. I'm Melissa Ross. This is First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9 Jax. We'll be right back here again at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great Wednesday.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by